Hello, this is Angela with Parkrose Permaculture. This is Ruth.
Hello.
We are in Tualatin on a nature hike. Actually, my husband and my two boys are here as well. They're just elsewhere hiking. And my second kid, B, is at an event out on this side of town, which is why we decided to hike here today. So I thought since we're out hiking and enjoying the beautiful weather that I might ask Ruth a few questions about unschooling. Is that okay with you, Ruth?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that we really like to do as a family is go hiking. It's one of our big unschooling activities. And so I felt like this was an appropriate place to maybe talk about that a little bit. And Ruth is 20 and a college student. And so she has some insight as someone who has unschooled her entire life. On this quite warm, sunny day, we picked a location very close to where my second daughter had a meeting, and we maybe should have picked a different spot because goodness, Tualatin Hills, while shady and nice in that respect, was very mosquito-y. It's a wetland, unusually mosquito-y, so that made it a little bit of a rough hike, but we tried to enjoy ourselves as best we could. Okay, so we're on this little hike. It's really nice here. Kind of perfect day to be hiking in the shade, right?
Yeah.
So is it okay if I ask you a couple questions? These are questions I get asked a lot about unschooling and y'all's experience being unschooled.
Yeah, sure. I'm really glad I was unschooled. I feel like there's a lot of unnecessary hurdles that I didn't have to jump through, but I ended up getting to the same place anyway.
I'm going to ask Ruth some questions that you all have asked me. These are not pre-prepared, and she doesn't know I'm going to ask them, so everything here is off the cuff. What does unschooling mean to you?
It means that I just get to live my life, really.
Okay, that's fair. So Ruth, as I'm getting attacked by a vine maple, how did you learn to read?
I don't really remember because I learned to read so young. I was like 2.
Which I think is pretty normal for a lot of autistic people, that they're kind of hyperlexic and they learn to read, or that can be a normal trait, right, for folks with autism, to be hyperlexic and learn to read really early. So I didn't teach you to read at all, or even teach you the alphabet or anything. You just learned it on your own.
Yeah, I was writing Winnie the Pooh fan fiction when I was 3, and I read the Harry Potter series when I was like 5, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. I probably read a lot more when I was younger than I do now.
Yeah. Okay, so what about socialization?
I feel like homeschooling gives you an opportunity to socialize with a wider range of people than public schooling would. Like when I had public school friends growing up, they would kind of act like it was cringe to be friends with people younger than them or even sometimes older than them. But there's absolutely none of that in homeschooling. And I have friends of any age.
Okay, here's another one. How do you know that you're learning?
It's kind of a weird question. I mean...
Well, can I clarify it for you? So in public school, and as you well know from college, you have to take tests to assess and quantify your learning, right? And get a score. So in the institutional setting, you don't know that you're learning the right things or learning at appropriate levels unless you take a test and you get a score. So how do you know as an unschooler that you're learning?
Well, I would say that everything is learning, and I think it's kind of silly to be only if you memorize these things on the test does that count as learning. But any kind of lived experience is learning. And I haven't found that there's really much learning catching up I've had to do in college. Just
That was my next question,
yeah.
Which is, how do you feel that you are doing your first year at college? And how do you feel, two-part question, and how do you feel that you compare to your peers who were in public school?
Well, I feel like growing up, public school kids and parents of public school kids and relatives sort of always acted like there was like secret stuff that you would only know if you went to public school, and like I was missing out on all this like gate kept knowledge, and I was really worried about that. But then once I got to college, I realized that like there's nothing that public school kids know that I don't know. Like I got to the same place as them. I know pretty much all the same stuff, and probably even more stuff.
I would say
in a lot of cases.
I would say you've had the freedom to explore topics that they haven't necessarily had time to explore. Do you think? Yeah.
And I feel like I retained a lot of stuff better than them.
And then I'm just gonna like shamelessly brag, right? You have a 4.0 in college, and you got inducted into the Honor Society. So being unschooled has not put you behind. You've been able to keep up in your classes and excel. Even if there's subjects that you've never taken a formal class on before, ever, like writing or math.
Like, especially math, like I guess that was one thing that I didn't know as well as my public school peers was algebra. I'd never taken an algebra class, and then I was taking calculus, and I didn't know any algebra, so I had to teach myself all of high school algebra, but I was still able to do it in like a couple weeks.
I was gonna say in like 2 weeks.
I feel like a lot of stuff taught in public school is taught very inefficiently, and that's why I'm able to like memorize some of it better than some public school kids. Just because when you teach yourself, you can do it very efficiently.
And I'll say too that for your math class, you took a placement test and placed it into that level. So it's not like you didn't have some of those core concepts, you just hadn't had them formally taught to you. Yeah. Okay, Ruth, can I ask you one more question?
Yes.
So what is something that you really enjoy doing with your family as an unschooler that you couldn't have done if you'd been in public school?
Aside from doing things not on the weekend when it's really crowded, I really like going hiking a lot, like we're doing now.
Oh, that's a good point, that we could do things during the week when we're pretty much the only ones there. That's a good point. Yeah, so we like to be outdoors in nature, right? And what's your favorite thing? Mushroom hunting, maybe?
Do you like mushroom hunting?
Yeah.
But
you don't have, so like there's things you don't enjoy though in nature, right? Like you don't like going to the beach.
Yeah.
So we kind of leave you do your own thing. That's one of the freedoms of being an unschooler, is that we don't all have to join in and do the exact same things, and we can explore our own interests, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to add about having been unschooled and now being an adult in college?
Well, if there's one thing I would say to non-unschoolers, it's that, or a question I would have for them is, why do they always feel the need to interrogate homeschoolers? Like a lot of public school parents, when they find out that I'm homeschooled, will just like throw math questions at me.
I think that's a good point.
Surprisingly very common occurrence.
Or like ask you what the 50 states are or something silly.
Yeah. I'm like, do you even know that? Like,
very true. Very true. And I think that's kind of like, I think people ask us questions about unschooling because most people in the world aren't unschoolers. And it is a educational philosophy that not everybody understands. And it's one thing to like ask questions because you're trying to understand, how does this work? And what did you guys get out of it? And things like that, versus the kind of interrogation that you guys have been subject to from people who just want to prejudge and don't want to understand that there are a diversity of ways that people learn and live and exist. Yeah. So thanks, Ruth. Thanks for being willing to share.
No problem.
At a fork in the trail, we saw this warning sign that there have been incidents of owls swooping down onto trail users. So obviously we took the owl trail, but we didn't see any owls. That was okay. It still was a really lovely hike despite all the mosquitoes. Tualatin has really nice, carefully maintained trails with lots of natives, and you can tell there's a lot of diligence about removing invasives. It's a wonderful representative sample of a native woodland. As an unschooling family, we enjoy hiking, but that doesn't mean that all my kids always go. They get to opt in or opt out. Sometimes my kids will just listen to music in their headphones while we hike. Sometimes we play games. Sometimes we have goals about wildlife we're looking for or mushrooms that we're hunting. It really depends on what the kids are up for, and often the children get to choose the location where we go hike. So thanks for hanging. Oh, did you find something cool? Oh, cool. Cool. Oops, someone coming up. So thanks for hanging out with us today, and I hope that Ruth helped answer your questions about what it's like to be unschooled.
Sorry.
Did you get a mosquito on me?
It died.
Thanks. Appreciate that. What it's been like for her to be an unschooler and now an adult who is, on to bigger and better things. I feel like unschooling is a philosophy that you carry into adulthood, and it's not something that you're just confining to childhood, and it shapes the way that you look at your interaction with the world and the way you approach learning. Thanks for being willing to explain some of that stuff, Ruth, because your answers might be different than my answers, right? Yeah, so we are going to keep walking because this part of the trail is really full of mosquitoes. I've gotten at least 2 mosquito bites. If you enjoyed this video, please check out my other videos on unschooling, and we'll be back real soon. Bye-bye. Thank you to my new patrons this week, Carrie, Tanner, and Muppet. I appreciate the support that y'all give to this channel. The support I get through Patreon helps keep this channel going, and it was questions from patrons that we used in this video.